Well, hello everybody. Welcome to our group night at Crossroads. A little bit different than we usually have it, but here we are, and just want to introduce you. Some of you may not know Ben and Emily, but this is Ben and Emily, and maybe I should have asked you to do this earlier. Maybe take a second and let us know who you are and how long you guys have been at Crossroads.
So I'm Ben. This is my wife Emily, my better half. We've been at Crossroads for almost 2 years now. So I moved here summer of 2018 and have been working with groups here at Crossroads since the fall of 2018. So excited to be here and figure out what this new group thing looks like. We'll figure it out as we go.
We're going to figure it out. Don't worry about it. But here's kind of the deal. We're just going to take a little bit of time tonight to do some group stuff with you, some kind of dig in a little deeper from Sunday's message. And but the thing is that this really doesn't work unless you are engaged, unless you comment with us, answer the questions that we ask. I'm going to be looking on my phone here as you guys are doing this. So as we ask questions, or Ben and Emily ask questions, if you could just answer the questions, and I'll tell them what your answer is, and they'll respond to it. And so, otherwise, we just sit and stare at each other, and that's not the plan for tonight. We want you guys to be engaged with us as we do this. So, I guess one of the things that we usually do in groups as we start is we usually ask an icebreaker question to kind of get things going, and I just want to kind of bounce off of the question that we asked on Sunday morning. It was just one of those kind of funny questions, and that's usually what we do in the groups, just to get people to start talking.
Yep.
To start having some kind of conversation, break the nerves and all that stuff. So the question that we have for our icebreaker question tonight is, what is your funniest why question? And I gave you a bunch of them on Sunday morning. Just kind of went through a bunch of why questions. So maybe you can think of a why question. I remember Sunday morning somebody put, why do people drive on parkways and park on driveways?
Great one.
That's a good question.
Great question.
So maybe you have a why question you could throw out there. I got a couple that I was thinking about today as we were kind of hoping you would answer this too. Do you guys do this? Why do you press harder on the remote control when you know the battery's dead? You guys do that?
Clearly it's going to make it work better.
Push it really hard, like You think if you push it harder, it's going to actually work, and sometimes it does.
Sometimes
actually.
it does.
It does.
That's why. That's why
Yes.
you do it.
Here's another one. Why doesn't glue stick to the inside of the bottle? That's a good question too.
Great question.
Maybe you have a question too. Feel free to put them on here with us. Last one, why don't you ever see the headline, Psychic wins the lottery? You would think so, right?
Also a good question.
Yeah. I was when I was a teenager, I worked at a pharmacy, and the guy that I was working for, the pharmacist, organized the community festival that we had, and he had a psychic call in one time. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but anyway, we will. He had a psychic call in one time, and the psychic said, "Hey, Jeff, when is the festival?" And the pharmacist really quickly said, "Well, you're the psychic, you should know." And he hung up the phone on him. So anyway, all right, so have we broken the ice?
I think so.
You feel good?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So we've been in a series about Job. And just so you know, I'm getting ready to hand this off to them. So I'm just kind of setting it up for them, and then I'm going to hand it off to them to kind of lead through some discussion. But we've been talking about Job, who was just living his life. He was, as the Bible describes, a blameless man, a man who had integrity. He was a man who loved his family, who had a great family, who made sacrifices for his family. And then within the course of 24 hours or so, maybe a week, everything in his life changed. Yeah. Everything went downhill. He lost his possessions. They were stolen. He lost his home by some kind of natural disaster created by God that killed his children as well. And then into chapter 2, you see that he's then covered with a virus that completely covers his entire body. And that caused in him a lot of questions. If you read chapter 3 of Job, it goes through one why question after the other. Why did you let me live? Why did my mom take care of me at birth? Why, if this is what living is about, why is it so bitter? asking questions like that. And so as I was thinking about that, and today, and this is kind of where our discussion goes today, is, right now in the time that we're living, it's a little scary. There's a lot of questions that we have. People are afraid of a lot of different things. And, obviously in our lifetime, we've never lived through anything like this. And I would say probably for most of the people that are watching, we've never lived through anything like this. So it creates in us all kinds of questions about school and life and kids and work and finances and our country and, people saying that this could be the next Great Depression and all these kinds of different things that are kind of out there. And so the first question that we need you guys to answer today before we hand off is when you think about the life that we're living right now, the day that we're in, what are you most afraid of? Like right now, what are you most afraid of? So answer that question, and maybe you guys can answer it a little bit first while we wait for somebody else to answer. But are you guys afraid of anything right now?
Well, so for me, the one thing I'm trying to decide if I'm willing to admit this on on live here.
Yeah.
But the one thing I am afraid of is needles, which is slightly problematic, being in the military and all the different shots and whatever you get. But you learn how to get through it. But it's one of those weird things.
Right.
And I don't think you're afraid of anything, are you?
I don't know.
Not afraid of anything?
We kind of joke. I don't really have a healthy fear sometimes of things I should be afraid of.
That is true. We went to Yellowstone when we were engaged. It was a few weeks ago, and she tried to pet a buffalo.
Pet a buffalo. Okay. Well,
not a good idea, by the way, folks. Don't
pet
buffalo.
I'm just looking to see if there's any questions. Oh, Ashley, Penny said the why question is, Nathan, her 4-year-old, said, "Why do we call it a belly button if it doesn't button anything?" That's what her 4-year-old said.
That is really
That's a good question.
He's
Nathan.
on to something there.
Good job.
That's a great question.
Great job, buddy. So the question is, what are you afraid of? Sally says that people won't really work to get rid of the virus. That's probably one of the fears, maybe medically. Felicia says that our home will be stricken with the virus. So there's fear of this could affect me or my family.
Or somebody we love. Right?
Somebody that we love, a
absolutely.
grandparent. There's certainly those fears. And maybe you have some fears too. But remember, we need you to engage. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Felicia, for doing that and help kind of answer these questions as we go on. So Jennifer says she's afraid of losing both our jobs and losing everything, then getting sick on top of that. So certainly there's a lot of people that are worried about their jobs, that they could lose. In fact, I saw today somebody posted on Facebook that we could please pray for some friends of theirs. They both husband and wife with children, both husband and wife lost their jobs last week. So there's a healthy fear of that. I mean, unemployment
very
is
realistic.
Unemployment is heading up. Jack says that members of my family would contract the virus. Ashley says that she's afraid that Zach won't be allowed to come home. Zach being deployed.
Her deployed husband.
Her
Yes,
deployed
absolutely.
husband and wanting to come home. Hannah says that the economy will crash so badly that it makes it hard to live with 4 kids. Absolutely. I mean, we have dependents. Our kids are our dependents. Our family are our dependents. We want to make sure that they're safe. Chelsea Anthony says, afraid that I'll get sick because I'm still working and bring it home to my family, and then losing our jobs is a real fear right now. So yeah, all the people that are still working and are with the public are obviously afraid of getting sick.
And very realistically
Yeah.
so. But it's amazing to me that we have the book of Job what a powerful story to kind of help us not to make little of our fears, but to help us understand how to work through those fears and really rely on God for that. So,
Yeah.
and interesting that the timing on this worked out.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Planning these things out so far in advance, and yet the timing works out that just as the virus hits, we as a corporate body are digging into probably one of the best books to dig into to really understand.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think God knew we needed, as a church, we needed to at least pay attention to this. Whitney says she's afraid of how long this thing's going to last. The entire crisis is going to last.
I agree.
That's, I mean, because you hear 30 days, you hear, we were just talking about this before we went on, some people, our governor says 30 days, other leaders in our country are saying we're going to be back in work by Easter, and it's just all these different, CDC is saying like 8 weeks, I think, so it's all these, how long is this thing gonna last? This will be the last one, then we'll move to the next questions. Chelsea Dryden says that she was laid off in January, and I'm afraid that all of this will keep me from getting a new job. Also afraid we'll all die slow, terrible deaths. For real, Chelsea. Chelsea needs a hug, Jacob. Can you give Chelsea a hug when you get home, please? Yeah. But this is a real fear. I mean,
It's
Chelsea already experienced getting laid off before all this ever hit. So, and then she's in the process of trying to find a new job. I mean, who's interviewing right now?
what an awful time. I know my dad's in a similar position.
Yeah.
What an awful time to be trying to find a job.
Yeah. So, anyway, I'm going to kind of let you guys now kind of run a little bit with it, and we'll start going into the book of Job now. And
all right, let's do it. So
I'll keep looking at the comments. So please keep answering.
Keep commenting, and we'll just keep injecting as we go. So, so Pastor Aaron talked through the why piece in chapter 3, but if you remember from the sermon on Sunday, the key takeaway for this whole thing was Job's response in chapter 19. So we'll focus tonight. We'll dive deep into this idea of Redeemer and Job's response in 19, and really try to look at that as a healthy way to answer some of those why questions that we all have. So, Emily, do you mind reading?
I got it.
Chapter 19? Well, not all of chapter 19, please. Just those couple of verses.
Good idea. So we're at Job 19, 25 through 27, if you wanted to follow along. Job says, I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth. And after my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh I will see God. I myself will see him with my own eyes, I, and not another. How my heart yearns within me. I think we all kind of can relate to that, how my heart yearns within me part right now as we're walking through so much stuff. So Job says, I know that my Redeemer lives. He's so confident with it, right? He says, I know. What most impresses you about Job's certainty? It wasn't just guessing. He was certain. And what can you be certain of right now in these uncertain times?
Good. So the question is, what can you be certain of right now in these uncertain times? That's the question we want you to kind of answer as Ben kind of digs a little deeper. What can you be certain of?
While we're thinking through that, we'll dig a little deeper into this idea of Redeemer, because it kind of is the underlying foundation for his faith and his belief, and it's astounding when you kind of trace the roots of it. So if you read back into the Old Testament, so in Deuteronomy, God is laying down the code for the Israelites. He's just pulled them out of Egypt, giving them the promised land, and he gives each family or clan their own apportionment based on number of people and all of these awesome things. And so in chapter Deuteronomy 15, it kind of talks through, and there's this interesting progression in 15, and really it's not even talking about the Redeemer yet. It's just talking about God's provision, where it starts in the chapter and it says, there should be no poor among you, there should be no needs among you, but there's a little asterisk, and it says, so long as you follow my commands and are obedient. And of course, then as the chapter progresses, there's the acknowledgement that the Israelites probably aren't going to do that. Oh, they're certainly not going to do that. And so you should hold your possessions with an open hand. It says be open-handed with the poor and the needy among you. And then a couple of chapters later in 25, we see this idea of the kinsman redeemer. And so that is this idea, I think, that Job is talking about here, where he says, I know my Redeemer lives. Well, the idea of a kinsman redeemer was that somebody would get into debt, whether it was bad circumstances, personal bad choices, God comes down and knocks your house down, which we see here in the book of Job, right? And the idea was that this kinsman redeemer was going to buy back. The idea was that they were the defender of the oppressed or the champion of the suffering. So there's the criminal side, where, say, your brother is killed. That kinsman redeemer's job was not to avenge, but to seek justice for that event. And then so that's on the criminal side. On the civil side, though, say you have a family member who has gone into tough times and they sell themselves into servitude. Well, the idea was that you would buy them back out of that. Okay, so you would help that oppressed person, and it was a very family-oriented, family-driven event. The closest male relative, and then there was a progression out from there. And so we see that actually played out in Ruth the entire book of Ruth is really about this idea of a kinsman redeemer, right? So you've got Ruth, who is actually a Moabite, not an Israelite. She marries an Israelite or a Jew, and he dies, and so she goes with her mother-in-law. So no mother-in-law jokes today, okay? My mother-in-law might be online, so please, no mother-in-law jokes. But so she goes back with her mother-in-law to this strange land, and they've got nothing. And in that time, there was no way for them to make a living. They were trying to sell the family property at the time just and she was gleaning out of a field, and then she's actually, through God's providence, is gleaning through her kinsman redeemer's field. And so he ends up redeeming her. And then the cool part of that story, right, is Ruth and Boaz have a son named Jesse. Jesse has a son. His name is David. I think we all probably know who that is.
Yes, we do.
Right? And then, let's move a couple of generations down the road from that, and we get to Christ, who is the ultimate. And that is who Job is really staking his faith on right here. Is, I know that there's going to be a Redeemer promised by God who will fix everything. And the astounding part of that is, this is thousands of years before Christ walks the earth, and Job still says, I know. Like, he had just this amazing belief and faith in that is just really impressive.
Yeah, only from the Spirit.
Right. That is just that deep Spirit moving there.
And pointing to, which I love so much about all of Scripture, is it all points to Jesus, the great Redeemer. It all does, and so that question was, what can you be certain of? Well, Job had so much certainty in his Redeemer.
He did.
And here's some of the answers that we got here. Hannah says, and I never say her name right, Schoengrab. Is that how you say it, Schoengrab?
I don't know.
They just recently moved away from here. And we miss you, Hannah. We miss you.
Very much.
She says, God's faithfulness, it literally never fails. Amy Faison says, God never leaves us, never forsakes us. Sally Andrews says, certain that God is in control and he is love. Mary Ellen says that God is our only source. Oh, I love this one. Rob Stearns says, his ability to perform miracles, just got one. That's great.
That's good news at a time like this. That's exciting.
Right.
We love good news. Jenny Davis says, my Savior's love. She's certain of it. Gerald Hill says, God is always in control and he loves us. Lisa Parnell says, no matter what, he always takes care of us. All things work for the good. Ashley Penny says, there's so much comfort in his word. Upward Sports, which I think is Angela. Hi, Angela. Says, this will end one day. We may have a new normal, but we will get through it. And that's so true. We can be certain of that. Jennifer Beard says, God is with us always. Rob says that prayer works. Felicia says, I'm certain that God is at work during this time. I'm one who has been working on issues with fear and anxiety for some time, and what helps me when I begin to worry about this crisis is to direct my focus back on God, knowing that my Redeemer lives. This breaks the momentum of the what-if fears that I conjure up in my head, snowballing out of control. Coy says, I'm certain that this light momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. That's a great. Yeah, it's always good to go back to Scripture.
Absolutely.
It's always good to go back to Scripture. Ashley Penny says, I'm also certain that my kids are always hungry. Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
You've met Colton, Ashley. You know.
We are there.
Kids
Oh
are
my
always
goodness.
hungry.
We are there right
I
now.
keep telling them we're going to run out of food, guys.
Our grocery bill has gone up since our kids are at home more now. Not off at college and all that stuff. And then Felicia says, my Redeemer lives and he lives within me. So many answers. Thank you guys for answering. This is awesome.
I love hearing all those names. I'd rather see your faces, though.
Tina Woodruff says, God has promised to meet all of our needs according to his riches in Christ Jesus.
Yes.
Hannah says I said her last name right. Ha!
Good job.
Yes. Chelsea says, I'm certain that we are not alone, that all of the forging in the fiery furnace is a gift-making way for new life. And in the fire, we have the fourth man in us forever, never alone. And that's
Another great
example.
Great, pulling in these biblical stories.
Yeah, of just the Redeemer
Yes.
in the fiery furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It's awesome. So let's ask the next question here.
All right, so we'll jump ahead then to the next question. So, does knowing that you have a living Redeemer bring comfort in suffering, crisis, maybe pandemic? Current time. We've all been living this. These current events. Does knowing that Redeemer is living, does that matter? Does that impact the way you respond? So, we'll give Emily a chance to talk for a few minutes while everybody types in their responses.
Yeah, on Sunday while we were listening to the sermon, I was taking notes, and I'd have to go back and re-listen, I guess, to really see what it was that Aaron had said, but immediately what struck me was verse, it's in 1 Philippians 1:21, where Paul says, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. And so, talking about how we can have comfort in suffering, you look at Paul, who, as he wrote that, he's literally in chains, he's in prison, and he's talking, the verses before and after it, he's talking about the importance of the Spirit of Jesus and of having courage, so much so that then he goes into that, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. And the whole idea that the Holy Spirit is to be our comforter, while Jesus is our Redeemer, just really stood out to me. And then that kind of snowballed into one of my favorite, James is my favorite book to read. Like, if you can't, man, that's a convicting book. But that got me thinking through James 1:2, which says that we need to consider it joy when we face trials, because through those trials, we develop perseverance, and through that we gain maturity and wisdom, and eventually coming to completeness. And so I guess while we don't necessarily always understand while we're in suffering what God is doing in us, and Job definitely didn't necessarily have any idea what God was up to, but we can be confident that our Redeemer is alive. And even if, like Paul says, the worst happens and we die, it's gain. But in the meantime, we should live and act as Christ. And I just really loved that idea.
Yeah. I actually had preached a funeral here a couple months ago. Maybe 6 weeks ago, and used that verse.
Did you?
For me to live, to die is gain.
Yeah.
And just kind of dug into what all that this saint had gained by dying.
Right.
We're so comfortable here and we think this is it, but there's so much more for us. So the question was, does knowing that you have a living Redeemer bring you comfort in suffering and crisis or in a pandemic? And immediately Ashley Penny said 100%. And then Amber, that's awesome. And then Amber said, I love your quick response to Ashley, because it was like just like that. So I guess this ended up being more of a yes or no question. Felicia said absolutely. Angela said yes, we have hope because he is with us. Michelle Moore said most definitely. Hannah said absolutely, God told us that trials will bring us closer to him, and I'm all for that. Jennifer said yes, I can't get through any of this without him. Do you ever think about that?
Yeah.
Just how people,
Right.
how there's so many people that are struggling today, and we have an answer inside of us that we can share with them, because they don't have Jesus walking through them with through
Right.
this
All
with
those
them.
why questions.
Yeah, I
that
can't
Job
imagine
asks.
trying
We have
to-
an answer.
Yeah.
We have an answer.
Mhm.
We have the answer. That's what I like about the book of Job. It gets as Job looks for all of his answers to all of his questions, it got to the place where it was like, God's saying to Job, I'm not the answer man. I'm not the one who's going to be delving out the answers to you. I am the answer.
Yes.
I am the answer. Denny Davis said, yes, I don't think I could face the crisis, not knowing that he was with me. Sally says, definitely can't go a day without him. Whitney Landis says, knowing he lives helps me knowing how he's already overcome it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, great answers. And I think we have one more question.
We have one more question.
One more question. Hang in with us for just another few minutes.
Last question. How does a change of perspective from earthly to heavenly change our outlook on our worst days? I'll let you take that one.
All right. So, while Aaron was preaching on Sunday about this topic, the thing that immediately jumped into my head, he was kind of talking about this idea of the shift from earthly to heavenly. And the thing that jumped into my mind was the story of Esther, and how she was in captivity in Babylon. The king gets mad, gets rid of the old queen, decides, hey, I need a queen now still. So he brings the tryouts, or whatever you want to call that entire process. But then Esther's made the queen. And then this incident happens where we have an advisor who is just mad. He's going to kill all Jews. And Esther's uncle, who had raised her, reminds her that, who knows but that you've been brought into the world, or to this royal position for just such a time as this. But I loved Esther's response. So I went back and read it, Sunday after the sermon, and her response was, okay, that's good, but fast and pray for 3 days. I will do the same, and then I will go in front of the king. If I perish, I perish. Like, that's the perspective, right? Like, okay, I have nothing to lose. Again, it's kind of like the Paul perspective, where what do I have to lose? I've been given this platform, or I've been given these specific abilities, and so why not? I have my Redeemer lives, so I can do anything. Kind of a concept. So I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah.
But let's see what else everybody had to say.
Yeah. So the question was, how does a change of perspective from earthly to heavenly change our outlook on our worst days, which is we're probably living in for some people, the worst days. So Angela Williams says we focus on something that is larger than ourselves. Yeah. That's great. When I was in Nicaragua, I shared that with the people. Just the change of perspective from when I was preaching that message, I actually went and sat on the floor. And it just changes your perspective of the way the room looks, the way things are, and it's the same deal with God. We see how big God is and how much He's in control. Hannah says, it takes all the pressure off of me. In my current status, it helps me not feel it's all on me to do it or to fix it all.
Yeah.
Yes, so true.
That's huge.
Ashley says, no matter how bad we think it is, we suffer no more in heaven. Yeah.
Absolutely right.
And Job
Thank
went there.
goodness.
Job went there in
Hey
19.
guys, our internet went down. We lost our network connection. It's
Bye,
the Wi-Fi.
Facebook.
Huh?
It's the Wi-Fi. It's not.
Yeah.
The kids stripped down some wire out there and unplugged some critical components.
I'm
The
a jinx.
building's burning down. We just don't know it yet.
I'm a jinx on technology. Sorry, Jacob.
Should I tell them we'll be back up in a minute?
Up to you guys. You can't. Back here a second.
Amber says she can still hear us.
Okay. Well,
Alright, well,
that's
we can
good. Well, we
do-
can keep answering questions then.
We'll keep it.
We can
We'll
do
keep
audio.
going.
All right, cool. So, yeah, so then Rob Stern says, I just went through something horrible, almost hurt myself. Now, for the first time ever, I feel God has a hold on me, and I feel like I'm on fire. A lot of changes coming. That's great, Rob.
That's powerful.
Amber says we can still hear you. Just kidding.
Thanks,
Chelsea
Amber.
says, is it really down, question mark? You're still on.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Sue just texted me and said, you're still up. All right. Cool.
just kidding.
Awesome. All right. Well, great. Well, then we better wrap this thing up while we get
That was a sign. That was a sign we should wrap this up.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, they say don't talk bad about us. We didn't. I think we were good. That's the kind of stuff that gets people in trouble,
Yeah,
right there. Oh man, that stinks. But all right. Well, I have a few things I want to share with you guys, just kind of about groups in general, and where we're headed with groups. So if you can hang on just a minute, I would like for maybe Ben, if you don't mind, just kind of closing us in prayer.
Okay.
And then I'll share just a few things
Yeah.
about groups in the future too. And I thank you guys for being here with us tonight. And,
Yeah.
Glad to.
we wanted to give you really a taste of what groups are like. Ben and Emily are our group leaders. They lead all of our, kind of oversee all of our groups, but they also lead a very vibrant group at our church that has a lot of children in it.
Vibrant's a good word.
So,
Vibrant is a very
yeah.
yes.
And
It's
being being military as well. I mean, when they moved into the area, one of the first things they wanted to find was a group of people to connect with, and so groups are really important to them and really important to our church as well. So why don't you pray, and then I'll just give a few words of encouragement to everybody as we go.
We'll do this. All right. Redeemer, we know that you're alive. We know that you'll stand on earth at the end, and we know that we will see you face to face. Help us to trust you in these scary, challenging days. Lord, help us to have confidence and say that we know that our Redeemer lives. Lord, we thank you for everything that you do for us. We thank you for Jesus. We love you. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, hang on with me just for a minute. I just want to share. Thank you guys first for commenting and engaging with us, because we weren't quite sure how it would go, and you guys just made it so much easier and better for us, and it really felt like a group in a virtual way.
Yeah. As
We-
much as you can.
As much as you can without everybody in the room.
Yeah.
It was very good.
So one of the things that is true right now is I think we need groups more than ever. We need connections with people more than we ever have before. A lot of people, when it comes to groups, have said, I don't have time. And and right now, a lot of people have a lot of time. So we're throwing the invitation out to you to say, listen, if you haven't connected in a group, if you feel alone or you feel isolated, which is very possible in this time because we can't get out as much, would you join one of the groups that we have? We're basically opening all of our groups up to virtual groups now. That's the only kind of way that we figured we could do it. So all of our groups are going to be virtual. Some tried it out this past week. Others, by next week, all of the groups will be up and running for that. So as a church, we have a Zoom account now. I know a lot of you have them as well. And so we want you to be able to, if you'd like to use Zoom, I know there are other platforms too, but if you'd like to use Zoom, we have a subscription to that now as a church, and we want to help you, especially group leaders, get set up. If you have any questions about how to do that, Emily sent an email to group leaders last night, so just go to that and respond to them and say, hey, we'd like to help. We would like help setting up Zoom, and we want to help do that. So we're willing to host them and get you set up so that you're ready to roll with that next week. A couple other things. If you're not in a group, like I said, and you do feel isolated or alone, or just what you experienced here tonight really just brought some joy to you in a really difficult week, just there's a couple ways you can sign up for groups and let us know. One would be to go on the app or go on the website and fill out the group form. If all of that seems kind of cumbersome to you right now, then just send an email to office@crossroads.cc. office@crossroads.cc. And we'll get you set up with a group as quickly as we can so that you can join a group next week virtually, which is a little bit less intimidating too.
Absolutely.
You know,
You can stay in your pajamas.
yeah, you can stay in
That's
your
what we did last
pajamas.
night
You
for
can,
our group.
yes, you can put the kids in a room and put a show on and sit out and do it. So, so just let us know. Again, you can go on the app or the website to do that, or just send an email to office@crossroads.cc and we'll get you hooked up. Group leaders, remember, just let Ben and Emily know if you need some help with Zoom, and
I'll
we'll
be
get you
sending
set
out
up.
an email. Sue's going to do a training for us if we need help with
Okay.
Zoom like we do.
Yeah. So we have some Zoom experts in our church, and one of them's on our staff. So they're willing to help train or help anybody that needs help with Zoom getting set up. And also say that we have some new groups that we are being able to launch as well. So a lot of our groups are full because we can only fit so many people in our houses, but that's not an issue right now. So we have wide open space because we can invite as many people into group as we need to. So, and we have some new groups that are going to start, specifically a ladies group that will be meeting on Mondays in the morning. So if you'd be interested in that group, just let us know. Again, office@crossroads.cc, or it's on the form. Just let us know that you're interested in that ladies morning group, and someone will contact you about that group as well. It'll be sometime Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good.
And I think that's it. I'm glad that we didn't say anything bad when it went down.
But it really didn't go out. It went out.
It didn't go down. And again, thank you guys so much for participating. It made all the difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
in this. And thank you guys, Ben and Emily, for being here with us. So
Thank you for having us.
you guys have a great night. Get signed up for groups. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Have a good week.